Okay. Hello. Arya, take off.
Oh, I was on mute. Okay.
So speak again.
Okay. So basically, I believe that YouTube Studios is a good place for all of us to share our knowledge with one another. So Vanish and Avery today will be speaking on health in the cosmos, so a little bit about astrophysics and medical products, and they'll be sharing their knowledge with you on these products and on all what they know about their area of field. And using YouTube Studios and social media is a good way to spread our awareness of our information and our knowledge to other people, so everyone is more aware and conscious of like what's going on in the world.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction. And we are very delighted to have our audience join us today from across the world on these innovative topics. Charan Kamal is led in the health industry to bring young talent together, not only in the field of medical technology, but also in rehab care. We have very able physiotherapists in India, Dr. Tanmeet and Dr. Muskan, who are treating patients. And then we also have these advocacy group of students who bring health topics on YouTube. With that, We would request you to introduce yourself and then introduce the two speakers, and we'll start the program.
Hi, my name's Dominique. I am one of the interns at this health company, and today we'll have Vanish and Avery who will speak on topics of astrophysics and medical products.
Hello. As introduced, I'm Avery,
I'm Vignesh. Nice to meet you all again.
and we will be talking about medical technologies, their applications, and other technologies in general that apply to space, but also how they apply back here on Earth with all of us.
And from me, you're going to hear a more general talk about both space as well as geology and engineering. So it's going to go over all this, and yeah, excited to share some of that with all.
Yeah.
So let's take it away. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'll switch. This one. Just loading up the presentation. Can you all see my slides? Do any of you? It's good? Okay. Yeah. So let's go away. Hello, everyone. My name is Vignesh Nagpal, and I'm a PhD student at the University of Chicago. I'm just about to finish my first year, so still very early days, but I study astrophysics and specifically planets around other stars, as well as their atmospheres and whether, different types of atmospheres can allow people to live, or what sorts of interest physics and chemistry is happening on other planets. And today I'm super excited to talk to you guys about these two very interesting concepts, terraforming and relatedly, geoengineering. And I'm very excited to speak to everyone as part of Charan Kamal Health Group. And let's get started. So just to start, here is a picture of our solar system. Well, not a real picture, but more of an illustration where every planet and major body is shown to scale. So on the right, you see the sun, which is huge. That's why you only see this right sliver of the sun. And going from right to left, you see the planets in our solar system. So we have Mercury, which is small and very close to the sun. Then you have Venus. Then you have our own planet, the Earth. And right next to it, you see the moon. There's also Mars, which we'll talk a lot about today, but we'll get to it too. Now, Mars has 2 moons. Then you have the big boys. You have Jupiter, which is this huge planet. It's the largest in the solar system, and it has more than 60 moons, of which you can see 4 here. Next, you get to Saturn, which has these beautiful rings that you can see. If you take a decent-sized telescope outside on a clear day, you might be able to see these rings. And then finally, you get to these icy cold planets, Uranus and Neptune. Far beyond this are things like Pluto and all these different far cold bodies, but we won't talk about them today. And the real reason I brought this picture up is, one, to just show that there's all these very different planets in our solar system. They're small, they're big, they're hot, they're cold, but to also focus on these 3 planets at the very right here, Mars, Earth, and Venus. Now, Earth, as our planet, is beautiful, it's blue, it's green, it's great for life, we can survive here. On the other hand, Venus and Mars, which are not that far from Earth, are very different. So here's once again a beautiful picture of Earth, and we all know and love it. Now, when we get to Venus, which is right next to Earth in terms of where it is in the solar system, it's a very interesting case because Venus is near the Earth in size. It's almost the same size as the Earth. It's basically called a twin of the Earth. But where it's different is that Venus is extremely hot, more than 300, 400 degrees Celsius, or whatever that is in Fahrenheit, but extremely hot, way too hot for people. Furthermore, not only is it hot, its atmosphere is actually actively toxic to humans. So there's acid rain, we would not survive there. Any sort of machine we send to Venus breaks down because of how hot and crazy the conditions are within an hour. So Venus, despite being very much like the Earth, in some ways, is completely the opposite in other ways. And it's not a good place to look for if we want to think about where at least human-like life could live and survive. On the other hand, if we go to the other planet, which is Mars, so Venus is closer to the sun than Earth, so it's a bit warmer. But for Mars, Mars is a bit further out than Earth. And we can ask the same question, which is, what is Mars like? Is it like the Earth in that people could live there, it has a decent atmosphere, or is it like Venus, or is it like something completely else? And it turns out, and here is an actual picture of Mars taken from a rover, so like a tiny little robotic car that's on the Martian surface that was sent there by NASA. And this picture of Mars really looks like a desert. That's because it is, except that the Martian desert, which is very dry, once again, because it's a desert, is extremely cold. It's not like many of the deserts on Earth, like the Sahara, where it gets really hot. It's very, very cold. We're thinking Antarctica level. It's like -60, -70, -80. And it also just has no water. It's like drier than any desert on Earth. Furthermore, one really different thing about Mars beyond this is that its atmosphere is completely different. The atmosphere is much thinner than Earth, so thin that, it would be really, even if it was oxygen, it would be really bad for us just because there's not enough of it. But actually, the atmosphere is mostly carbon dioxide, which you guys might know is something we can't really use for breathing as we do. So living on Mars as it is today would be really hard. There's not enough air, and whatever air there is not the type of air we will use. So that's a problem for humans. Furthermore, Martian dust, which you have an actual picture of here, because of the way the soil on Mars is different and the fact that Mars is much smaller, so lots of particles can lift up very easily, the Martian dust actually may pose a health hazard because of the particles in the soil that get mixed into the air, and for people there, it might be a health hazard. That is if you were there without a spacesuit, which we talked about last time. So I'm not going to talk about spacesuits today, but they're very useful. So this sort of brings us to the central idea for this talk, which is this idea of terraforming. I've showed you already that relative to the Earth, the other nearby planets in our solar system that could potentially have some hope of hosting humans one day are currently completely incapable of that. When you have Venus is way too hot, it's toxic, and we would not survive more than even 10 seconds there. Mars, on the other hand, is a bit more promising, but it's still very difficult. On Mars, you barely have an atmosphere. It's very cold. It's also smaller than the Earth. You have weak gravity, but at least it wouldn't kill you immediately like Venus did if you wore a spacesuit. And this general idea motivates this concept of terraforming. So if the planet that we're interested in, other than the Earth, is not like the Earth at all, is there a way in which we as humans could actually modify the entire planet? So their atmosphere, the surface, the soil, the rain, or to bring rain if there's no rain. Could we somehow do this to make a planet that's very much not like the Earth and very bad for humans into one where humans could eventually live, first survive, and then maybe eventually thrive? And the idea behind how you would do this is this concept known as terraforming. And terraforming is the hypothetical process, because it hasn't been done yet, and we're going to get into why that is, through which we could modify the atmosphere and conditions of another planet to make it more like the Earth, and thus habitable for humans. Now, this is a concept that's been talked about in books and movies for a long time, but it's very difficult, and there's a lot of research to try and do this. But the reason why it's very difficult is that we're talking about changing an entire planet. We are tiny humans. We can do a lot of things, but a planet is much bigger and therefore much more difficult. But it's going to be worth trying, so that's why we're going to talk about it. Now, an interesting thing about Mars that makes this, not something that is hopeless forever, is the fact that in the past, like way in the past, we're talking billions of years ago, way before even humans evolved, Mars is thought to have had liquid water on its surface. However, today, Mars is dry and cold. There is no liquid water. There's ice in some places, but there's no liquid water. And the reason we think that Mars might have had liquid water on its surface in the past is because of images like these, where essentially what you're seeing are geological structures that kind of look like what rivers left behind. And essentially the shape of these structures on Mars, even though it's completely dry now, looks a lot like what rivers on Earth carve into the soil and into the geology. And in fact, more detailed studies of these have showed that it's pretty likely that way in the past, rivers actually made this before the rivers dried up. So the fact that Mars in the past had conditions that were good for liquid water at least give us a bit of hope that maybe in the distant future you could do something to Mars that could once again bring about conditions that can host liquid water. It's not like it was never able to. Jupiter would never be able to host liquid water no matter what we do. Venus is a different case as well. But Mars, right now that capability is gone, but perhaps with enough work, we can get it back to the place where these sorts of canals are filled with rivers again. But that is going to be very hard. And that is because the atmospheres of Mars and Earth, like we've talked about, are crazy different. Okay. Okay, at this point, I want to pause and just ask for any questions before we get into the more science part of it. Yeah. Okay, so I can see some questions. Okay, so Muskan asks, how is Mars dry now? Is there life possible there? So that's a very good question. It's a complicated answer, but actually we can understand it. So Mars is dry now because Mars is a smaller planet than the Earth. It has less gravity. And essentially what happened over the long history is that the gas in the atmosphere wants to always leave. But usually what happens on the Earth is that the gravity is strong enough to keep the gas near the surface, and that's why we have an atmosphere. But Mars is smaller and it has weaker gravity. So over time, the atmosphere just left because the gravity couldn't pull it back. So over time, Mars's atmosphere got thinner and thinner and thinner, and that's the problem. We need to find a way to make it thicker so that there's enough air for us to breathe. And because of this, because the atmosphere is so thin, and also it's mostly carbon dioxide, we think that right now, life, at least the type of life we know here on Earth, is very difficult, if impossible there. But never say impossible. We need to actually go there and look properly. Great question. Can Earth, now Ni Disha asks, can Earth sustain the population growth? Do we need to go to space to live? That's a great question. We're going to talk more about this whole question of Earth versus space at the end, but I think the first move is to fix the Earth, because anything we're going to do in space is going to be so much harder that to successfully live in space, we will have the technology already to fix the Earth. So it makes sense to first fix the Earth and then focus on space. But maybe by thinking about space, we can also start learning how we can fix the Earth. Okay, Tanmeet Oberoi asks, can upcoming technology make life in Mars possible in the future? Maybe, and that's what we're going to talk about. That's the second half of this talk. So very good questions, everyone. Keep them coming, and I'll keep going now, and we can take questions later as well. Okay, so back to these slides. So the reason why changing Mars is going to be so difficult is because the atmosphere of Mars and Earth are extremely different right now. So here on the left, we have a picture of Mars as well as the different gases in its atmosphere. You have 2% argon, 2% nitrogen, 96% carbon dioxide, and that's a crazy amount, right? As well as trace gases, of which oxygen is a very small part, water vapor is a very small part. And as you guys might know, oxygen is very important for us, and so is water vapor. Now, contrast this with the Earth, right? So on the Earth, first of all, 78.1% is nitrogen, which is way more nitrogen than here on the left. And very importantly for our survival, 21% is oxygen, because we breathe that, so we need, at least if humans are to live, we need oxygen. So that's problem one. You need to change the atmosphere of the Earth to have more oxygen. But the second problem is this thing that the overall atmosphere of Mars is so thin that even if it was oxygen, we would struggle. So we need to also make Mars's atmosphere thicker. So these are the two problems that we would need to get past. And just a series of pictures as to what terraforming could look like if one day we achieve it. On the left is a picture of Mars today. And as you move to the right successively, we get towards this hypothetical, fully terraformed Mars, where we've essentially changed the atmosphere, surface, and temperature of Mars so much that it starts looking like the Earth again. This is what people would love to do. But this is going to be hard, because it turns out that when researchers from NASA and other universities looked into how you might achieve this, it's actually quite difficult. If you try and use materials that are within Mars alone, so such as gases stuck within rocks, water stuck within ice, as well as everything inside the planet, it turns out that no matter how much hidden gas you may release into the atmosphere of Mars, at least from the materials on Mars itself, you will only be able to increase its atmospheric pressure to 7% that of Earth. Now, you started off at 1%, because the atmosphere is basically 1% as thin, 1% as thick as the Earth. But no matter how hard you try using Martian resources, at least, it seems like you can only get to 7%, which is still 15 times less than what we are used to here on Earth and what we would likely need. So it is very difficult to terraform Mars using materials in Mars itself. Now, because of this, people have started to come up with some very innovative ideas for how you can start terraforming Mars. The first is this idea where you can inject nanorods. So these are less than a millimeter. These are 1,000 times smaller than a millimeter long. And they're these really cool material that if you spray in the atmosphere, would stay in the atmosphere because they're small things, so the air keeps them up. And they would be very reflective and absorbent. Sorry, they would be very absorbative, which means that all of the light that would hit the Martian atmosphere, instead of getting reflected back into space, would hit these nanorods and then stay within the atmosphere and start slowly warming up the atmosphere. And as I told you, Mars is very cold, so we do need to warm it up. So this is an idea that you could inject these nanorods that would stay in the atmosphere, and they would start warming it up and make it more conducive for life like humans. But this is a very early stage. This was only last year. But if this works, to understand which we need to do a lot more research, this would be very exciting. And this sort of brings us to the main point here, which is that terraforming, which was this really cool picture I showed you here, where you go from a planet like Mars to Earth, while it's very exciting, is also very, very, very difficult. So if you ever hear anyone saying that, oh, we don't need to fix the Earth, we can just go to Mars and live there, they don't know what they're talking about, because to live on Mars, we would have to change the entire planet so much. And doing that would be 1,000,000 times harder than fixing things on Earth. So thinking of Mars or Venus or any other planet as a place to escape to from Earth is not realistic. Maybe it could be a second colony in the future, and we want to do that. But first, we really need to make sure that our home base, Earth, is actually safe. And that brings us to the second part of this, which is, if not terraforming, what if we do the Earth equivalent, which is geoengineering? And this is because terraforming another planet is likely going to be much harder than geoengineering the Earth to fight climate change. So here is a picture showing many things that people have proposed to geoengineer the Earth, which is make the conditions on Earth more favorable for our life and continued existence here. And especially with climate change and how temperatures are rising and floods are happening and people are really struggling with this problem probably getting worse in the future, we really need solutions to stop climate change so that we can get to this point. Solution one would be that governments get their stuff together, and we actually, as a big society, start dealing with this problem. But that's not happening. So geoengineering could be another way in which you start dealing with these problems. And this is this really innovative engineering space where you can use technology to start altering the Earth. Maybe by 1 degree Celsius, you make it 1 degree Celsius colder. Maybe you get 10% more rainfall, 20% more rainfall. But even that could have major implications. And notably, doing a 1%, 2% change on the Earth is much easier in principle than doing a 1000% change on Mars. So we really should start here. And shown here are many processes. So we're going to talk about a few of them in more detail, but just to get us idea of what sort of space there is here. So some ideas are that you can essentially genetic engineer your crops to make it more easy for them to grow in difficult places, and therefore you could get more growth and you would be able to feed more people. So if you have a problem with population growth, such as we got a question about that, maybe these sorts of solutions where you develop better and better crops can actually help with this. And this has happened in the past and it's continuing to happen. Now, you can also genetically engineer crops to maybe make them more reflective, because so much of the Earth's land is taken up by farms. So if your crops are actually more reflective, if they act more like a mirror, the sunlight that hits them will go back to space because it's being reflected out. And maybe that'll start cooling the local area a bit, which is good, especially if you're in countries where the temperatures give you a heat stroke and it's very unsafe. You really want to start cooling your area. Similar idea of cooling, people have suggested that perhaps we can, in the oceans, pump up materials into the atmosphere that will cause more clouds to form. And as anyone who's been under a cloudy day might know, if it's a really sunny day and a cloud shows up, you start feeling cooler because the cloud essentially gives you shade and it also reflects the sunlight back into space, which prevents the Earth from getting warmer. So we're going to talk more about this in a second. There's also some really cool ideas where you can transfer carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which is, causing this global warming that is causing a lot of problems. Maybe you can use technology to capture it from the atmosphere and pump it deep into the Earth where it'll stay safe and unharmed. You can also do the very good and classic solution, which we need more of just planting more trees and stopping deforestation as much as you can. And finally, some cities in the world, both naturally have been doing this for like many thousands of years, but also have started to do this because of global warming, have buildings that are painted in reflective white paint or light colors. And what this will do is, once again, because white is so reflective, you can start cooling the local area by making the roads and your rooftops of houses white so that they reflect the sunlight and keep things cold. Finally, there's also some really cool things where you can do in the ocean with more like bioengineering through algae, but we're not going to talk about that. So this first idea, marine cloud brightening, which is this picture here on the right, is this idea that essentially we can pump little particles of salt into the atmosphere that will make clouds brighter. And when the clouds become brighter and more reflective, they will reflect more sunlight, and that will start cooling down the areas you do this. Another really cool idea, similarly, is cloud seeding, where you can essentially pump small particles into the clouds or into the atmosphere. And the way cloud formation on Earth works is that water droplets and water ice that make clouds actually form on top of small particles in the atmosphere. And the idea is, if you put more small particles, you will make more clouds. And if you make more clouds, you will have more rain, and you will also start, once again, cooling down the area because of the reflective nature of the clouds. But the key idea is you can make more rain this way. And cloud seeding, while it's still very much being researched, is a really cool concept that is actually being placed into effect in lots of places. So in countries like the UAE, as well as various places in the US and some other countries, cloud seeding has actually been tried to increase rain, and it has kind of worked. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done, but this sort of concept can bring rain to areas that need rain. It can also cool down areas that need to be cooled down. So you can imagine places that have no rain, that really struggle to grow food, maybe with cloud seeding, if we do it right, they could start doing this. So this sort of brings us to the key point that while geoengineering is a really promising idea to essentially, make the earth better for us to live on, all of the technologies for geoengineering are very early in their development. And we need to keep researching this and keep testing it in the real world so that we can make it effective and safe. Because if it's not safe, especially when you're trying to play with the earth, if you don't do it correct, you might make 100 new problems to try and fix the one problem you started off trying to fix. So we really need to make sure we know what we're doing. And given how climate change is going, maybe geoengineering of cloud seeding or marine cloud brightening, as well as the various other things people thought of, might have to be our solution. So at this point, that's the end of my talk. Thank you all for listening. I'll take any questions that are in the chat. And yeah, thank you. Okay. So, great question. So let's see, where do we start with? Okay, so I'll go in order. So first, Nidisha asked, will too much pollution make it impossible to live on the earth? And the answer is probably it will make it a lot more difficult. Impossible is hard to say. You can always, we see this in highly polluted cities like Delhi, where I'm from. When it's really polluted outside, people just stay inside. And you can do this, but not everyone will be able to survive. So maybe it won't be impossible to live on Earth, but it will be extremely difficult and cause many problems, such as health problems, as well as lifestyle changes, and it's overall not a good situation. Okay. Tanmeet Oberoi asks, sir, are there any chances that maybe any anaerobic organisms live on Mars? That's a really good question. That's actually an amazing question. So anaerobic, for those of us who maybe don't know this term, just means life that lives without oxygen. So Tanmeet asks a really good question, which is, Mars doesn't have oxygen, but maybe there's life that doesn't need oxygen that's living there. And the answer is we don't know. We actually really don't know. We know that there's not any big animals like giraffes or things like this because we would have seen them, but it is completely possible that some kind of small microbial, microorganism life that doesn't need oxygen and lives on carbon dioxide instead could be living there. But we need to actually go to Mars and look for it. And that's hard because going to Mars takes 6 months and billions of dollars. Also, if you go to Mars and you want to study something in terms of small things there, as of right now, we don't have the technology to do it on Mars. The best idea would be you go to Mars, you bring a big piece of rock from it back to the Earth, and then you study it on Earth. But that would once again take a lot of money. NASA wanted to do it, and now they no longer have the funding. So we don't know yet, but maybe one day we could start looking at this. Okay, another question. How do they make the nanorods? That's a good question. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't know. It's very new research. It was done in a lab a few months ago, but it's very tiny rods, so you need nanotechnology. But I don't know much about nanotechnology. I just know it's very cool. But yeah. Which material do they use to make the nanorods? Honestly, same. It's some sort of carbon technology, but beyond that, I'm not exactly sure. Nidisha also asks, what is the distance of Mars from the Earth? The distance is essentially twice. So if Earth is 1 times the distance from the sun, the Mars is 2 times the distance. So that's why it's also colder, because it gets less sunlight. But it's not so much colder that there's no hope to make it warmer. What are the negative effects of cloud seeding, if any? And this is from MedTech Janagama. Great question. The negative effects are mostly that maybe if we do it wrong, you make too much rain and then you get floods. Or maybe because you're pumping particles in the atmosphere, if you don't put the correct particles, maybe you put incorrect particles that are unsafe, you could start messing up things like the ozone layer, as well as make the atmosphere more toxic. And this is why the research has been slow, but you need the research, I think, at this point to make it safe so that we can start dealing with the main problem, which is how climate change is really going to start affecting a lot of people and already is. Benefits of cloud seeding, yeah, it's this potential to start, getting rain in places that really need rain, where people don't have water that they need. It's all these things that could be great if we just figure it out. Okay, Avery asks, why are the distances from the sun to each consecutive planet increasing exponentially? Is it exponentially?
Well, you said it doubled the
Oh.
distance to Earth and then Earth to
Yes.
Mars.
So interestingly, it's very irregular. So from Earth to Mars, it doubles. But from Mars to Jupiter, it does not double. And from Jupiter to Saturn, like, it increases. But it's this very, not even, I don't want to say random, but it's kind of random. It's like maybe 2 times, 1.5 times, 1.3, 3 point something. And people are really working to figure out why that is. So I don't actually have a simple solution. But the general picture, and this is getting to my astronomy research, is that we think that the planets formed very ordered when the planets all formed, but then eventually, because they're all pulling each other, things just hell broke loose. They started kicking each other to random places, and eventually they calmed down, and now you have this sort of weird spacing. Yeah, so that's actually a very current thing in astronomy, figuring this out. Let's see. iLight Global says, it's very important to think beyond life on Earth. However, Mars may not be easy to reach because it takes 6 months travel time. Exactly, it's very hard, which is another reason while we should think about Mars and do research. I like astronomy, right? Mars is great. We cannot view it as this solution to problems on Earth because it's so far, no human has ever been there, and it's just crazy different. It's so much good. It's going to be way easier and be more realistic to do something on Earth. But we should keep looking to Mars because it's cool. And eventually humans maybe will be able to go there. Varun Singh Chauhan asks, is there any effective agents for inducing rainfall? Yeah, and that was the main idea for the seeding thing. Essentially, clouds on Earth, instead of water just forming clouds naturally, what they usually do is that there's other small particles in the air, and the water just collides with the small particles and makes small particles again, and that grows and grows. So one way of inducing rainfall is to put more seeds, like cloud seeds, into the air, which are these particles that this plane is putting into the air, and that can promote particle growth. Sir, will the atmospheres of Earth remain the same in the next 20 years? Great question. It's already changing. Yeah, we're putting more greenhouse gases into there, so I don't know, but it's currently changing, and it'll probably keep changing. Varun Singh Chauhan, also a great question about cloud seeding. Could it disrupt natural weather patterns in neighboring regions? This has been introduced in many cities. Will it disrupt natural phenomena? The answer is probably yes. I think in isolation, when the Earth is just doing its own thing, like if the Earth currently was 100% natural, you could say that cloud seeding and the risks behind it are too dangerous and that you should not disrupt the natural order of things. And I would agree. But right now, the weather patterns in our world are very much not natural. They're human created, right? We see this all across the world. We have people from India in the chat. We're in the US. I have friends from all over. And everywhere in the world, things are weird. And why is this weird? It's because we as humans have for many hundreds of years been changing the atmosphere. So we've been changing it in a bad way. So we need to do something to fix it, and perhaps our attempts to fix it will cause other negatives, such as weather pattern changes. But perhaps we actually need to do it, because otherwise, right now, the solutions are not looking good. Yeah, and just to sort of drive home this point, the negative and positive effects, right? Positive effect, you could potentially get more rain, you could get rid of drought, you could do all these amazing things. You can also cool down the Earth because clouds are more reflective, so they cool down the surface, which we need, especially if you're in India. You guys know 50 Celsius, 49 Celsius. It's crazy. It's very hard to live, and people actually are suffering, right? So any solutions for that are helpful. But the downside is the risks that this may not work.
Can he read some questions? Can he read some questions? If you compare it's a break. Just read the questions.
Yeah, you can read a couple of questions.
Absolutely.
These two.
Is it theoretically possible to see Martian clouds given the thin atmosphere and low temperatures? I think that's a very good question. I think based on what Vignesh was sharing, I think theoretically, at some point in the process of changing the environment of Mars, it would be possible. At what point would you say that it would be possible to do such a thing?
That's a great question, and yeah, it might theoretically be possible, as Avery said, but I think the problem is that Earth has an atmosphere that's 100 times thicker than Mars, which means there's just more things in the atmosphere that can theoretically condense to make clouds. So if you remove 99% of the atmosphere, you just don't have enough stuff in it to naturally form clouds. So even if you cloud seed, maybe you won't be able to do that much because the seeds will be there, but they'll just be floating around. There'll be nothing forming on top of the seeds to really fix this problem. So maybe in the future, right, where Mars has a thicker atmosphere, if terraforming ever works, you could perhaps do cloud seeding. But right now it's just too thin. I think it would be quite difficult. And also on Mars, there's not that much of a motivation to do cloud seeding. One, because it's already cold. We want to warm up Mars. We don't want to cool it down, which is the opposite problem. Second, right now, Mars has no water. So in the atmosphere, it's like barely any. So we first need a way to get the water into the atmosphere, and then we can start thinking about how to get the water into clouds. But right now, we're not even at like step 0. So we need to do step 0 first. Yeah.
Next question. You mentioned earlier that NASA has stalled studying Mars due to funding cuts. What can people do to help continue the research? And
I think this is very hard. I don't know. I don't know what people can do. Maybe we can all. I think the first thing is to just stay curious. There's so much amazing science and research that are being doing by people all over the world, and just stay curious about what's happening, because I think one of the problems that science is facing right now is that we have this problem where there's a lot of amazing work that's being done, but somehow we are not, as scientists, are not communicating it well enough to the general public. And because of that, the general public thinks, not everyone, but many people think, why should my money, my tax money, be used to fund your research? Your research is useless. What is it doing for my life, right? And I think the fact that people don't know about what's happening is because the communication is not effective enough from the scientists, and probably our education system is not promoting a value of science as much. So these are all big picture things, but I know what scientists can do, which is communicate better. And maybe, hopefully, when we do that, people will be more interested. And if people are more interested, eventually governments will have to support science more. That's my hope. But I don't know. This is a very tough question and something we're all thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's those types of discussions are always very difficult. I think things you can do is there's a lot of ways to reach out to local public officials and things like that, and a way that sharing your identity. There's also a lot of anonymous ways as well, and so you can use one of those of reaching out over the phone, over email, over the mail, to ask for a diversion of attention.
That's a great point. Yeah. Honestly, yeah. We need civic engagement.
Exactly.
That's the move.
Okay, where were we?
Is that it? Thank you all for the very nice comments. I'm glad you enjoyed.
Yeah. And how do these climate methods affect local weather?
It's basically, there could be many effects. The intended effect, which is why you're doing it to affect the local weather, is that maybe you can change the rainfall, you can make it colder, and those are the things you would want to have happen. Now, there might be some negative effects that you don't predict. For example, maybe you cause too much rainfall, and that can cause floods. But essentially, we don't know the negative effects yet, because you need to actually test it to know.
So some of the audience are asking what is the next schedule, when is Avery going to talk, so just give a schedule to the viewers, how long is your talk remaining,
Okay.
then
Yeah.
so how much more time you have for your talk.
I'm done.
You're
I'm
done?
basically
So you
done.
have another 5-7 minutes, like while you're interacting,
Yeah.
and then Avery
Or-
will be coming,
yeah.
and then Dominique might introduce. So our audience will. Do you want to restart the live? Give
Oh,
them
no,
a
we can-
5 minute
we can
break,
just-
or you want to
We
continue
can just
with the
continue.
same?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely continue.
Because
the
we
same.
have a good flow of audience. They're asking
Yeah.
us a lot of questions, very interactive, and please keep chatting your questions so that that the knowledge can spread, and share the link with your friends. Some of the students were asking, how do we share the link? Can Avery you guide people? How can they share the link to their friends?
Yeah, just below the video, next to the like button, which you all should be clicking, hopefully. Just to the right of it, there's a share button, which you can use to copy the link, to email, to use WhatsApp, Facebook, X, Reddit. There's a lot of different ways you can post it on your socials to share it so that while we will be talking for at least the next 30, 40 minutes, that more people can join on and learn live and be able to ask us questions live instead of just having to reach out afterwards through email or through the other methods that we've shared in previous live streams.
Yeah.
And there's one more announcement. You may go there. You may go there. She's going to announce her upcoming topic.
Hello, like I said earlier, my name is Dominique. Later in the upcoming weeks, I will be doing a presentation and topic on women's health and why it matters, and kind of advocating for women's health and the importance of it, and how throughout the past decades we've paid a lot more attention to it because it's very valued. It needs to be more aware in the society, and I'm very excited to speak on that. Next, we'll have Avery, who is speaking on medical technology.
Nice. That's a super important topic. Can't wait for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can finish and
Yeah.
introduce.
Okay. Well, that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for listening. And next, don't go away. We have an amazing talk coming up by Avery.
Hello, everyone. I will be getting my talk set up, but for now, it'll just be about a couple minutes.
And last 15 minutes will be interactive forum. So after every finishes, people will have chance to interact. So all three of you can be together and people can have their questions.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to take a quick break, we have 3 minutes of break and then we are going to start again. Continue on the same channel, just take a few minutes of break. Do you want some water, coffee?
Well, we're still on the live stream. We will be back in a couple minutes. Are we good? Are we?
So other thing before you start, some students want to be speaker here. So they want to be part of this project which you have started for students. Can you give them a brief outline how they can be speaker, how they can share their resume, how they can connect with you all so they want to be speakers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, reach out to us through email, through our Jerem Kamal email that is attached to our YouTube account. And then also, let me see if I can pull up, we also have some ways to reach out through our website, JaronKamalHealth.com. And then also our LinkedIn, which is Sharon Kamal Health. Our Instagram, medtech.SharonKamal. And our Facebook. Actually, we'll copy all of this over so that we can see this.
Can that be shared on the link, on the comments, or maybe later?
Well, I can share it right here.
So Varun Singh Chauhan wanted to speak on sensors. He's a science graduate who has been working on biosensors, and Varun Singh Chauhan is very interested. Tanmeet Oberoi wants to talk about rehab care, like recent advances in rehabilitation. He has his own YouTube channel, and we have many other students who are trying to be part of the speaker series. I hope Vignesh and Avery will be able to guide them how to be our speakers. And we are also opening some talks on women's health and pediatric care in the future. So I hope you have shared the links by now.
We will.
And many thanks to the students of our non-profit organization, iLight Global, and the volunteers and teachers and students who have been joining us from various states of India, from Kolkata, Himachal Pradesh, Ranchi. Some of the questions have been typed in Hindi, but I'm sure that knowledge can be shared in whatever language. You can type your questions and whichever language you're comfortable with. सो एवरीबडी हैज अ चांस टू कनेक्ट. आप लोग जिस भी लैंग्वेज में बोलना चाहें, लिखना चाहें, लिखिए. वो चीज़ बाद में ट्रांसलेट की जा सकती है और क्वेश्चन का आंसर दिया जा सकता है. सो we would want you to continue with your talk. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's information on how to stay connected to us, to reach out for us. You can look at our website for more information. And then on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, you can DM us, contact us directly if you have these ideas of things you want to present, or any just comments, questions, or concerns in general. We'd love to interact with all of you and just be able to make health more accessible to all people. So please do reach out to us, and please do stay connected. And with that, I will start my presentation on remote medical technologies. So yeah, I will be talking about remote medical monitoring devices and technologies, and medtech advances in the field, in different ways that health is becoming expanded and more reached out to more people and more places. Just talking a little bit about that. Again, here's information on how to stay connected with us. So with this agenda, I'm going to be going over a couple different things, starting out with RPMs, or remote medical monitoring, where it is just in general what it is, how it applies to all of us, because it does. And then we're going to be going into different components of systems and technologies, and different concepts that are very key to understanding how these different technologies are designed, how they're thought up, and why they are the way they are. Then we're going to look at some of the recent advancements to stay on top of the field. We're going to look at some benefits and impact on healthcare in general. Then we're going to be looking at just some more, going back to popular applications and uses in the modern day, before going back into integrating with telehealth, which I feel like has become a big topic since the pandemic 5 years ago started up. It's been super important to make health more accessible, not because it is just something where people live far away or things, but sometimes there's just things in life, in the world in general, that get in the way. And so it's important to have these resources be able to go to you. And then reimbursement and policy landscape, but looking a little bit at what is behind these technologies from a political perspective and how they are more accessible, but also how, to get to them more. And then we're going to be doing a little future outlook of just what we think is coming up. Hard to tell, but it's always fun to discuss. So yeah, we're starting with what is remote medical monitoring. RPM leverages connecting medical devices and cloud platforms, connecting and transmitting and analyzing patient data outside just the standard clinical setting, to be able to reach more experts that can help with providing proper insight for continuous monitoring, early detection, and proactive treatment and management of systems, of symptoms, both just acute but also chronic. And this can reduce the weight on hospitals, making it so that people who need attention that can be provided remotely, which can be a lot more people than you would expect, can be able to get that attention, leaving the space in hospitals for people who need that specialized care in an in-person setting. And so that helps both sides of patients by making it easier for patients who don't necessarily need to go in, but then also leaving more resources and space for those who do. And this aligns a lot with, like I said, focusing on value-based care and focusing on caring for the patients in a way that puts their needs and what they can do, where they can go forward. This can improve a lot of things when it comes to health in general, by reducing stress, and saving money and resources so they can be better well spent, and then just keeping the loop and communication better in general, which is always a good thing. So let's go through the key components of an RPM system. We're going to start out with support and training. We're onboarding, that's like onboarding, technical assistance, and user education for patients and providers. So this is anything from them handing out pamphlets and when you're done with a meeting, where there's QR codes, having accessible websites where they can give information and provide you with resources to better understand what you are experiencing and what they are offering to you. And so this can help a lot with even just simple things of, here's what you are experiencing right now. Here's a link to a website that does a good job explaining, what your symptoms you may have, what symptoms and what each of those symptoms mean, and then maybe where this originates from. So here's how you can help yourself better. Here's how you can better take care of yourself. But then also on the other side of, here's what the care we are providing to you and why are we providing it. And I think that's super important, is keeping a patient in the loop, because it helps them feel more comfortable and makes it easier to treat a patient when they are fully involved with the process and fully okay with every part of the process. And so I think that's a very important subject and definitely important component, very key component in the system. We're going to talk about, with remote monitoring devices. There's a lot of different examples of this. Blood pressure cuffs, glucometers, pulse oximeters, ECG patches, smart weight scales, implantables. I think that a lot of these in general are specialized devices that focus on one individual thing, but I think that's part of what makes them so amazing. I think the glucometer is something that has helped millions and millions of people by making it easier to keep track of their blood glucose, to make it so they don't have to. That's never really a question of can I do this? Do I need to bring this with me? This medicine, do I need to make sure I have this much insulin? And you can keep track, and it helps you predict what you will need and know exactly what you need in the moment as well, and just have a better awareness of your own body and your current health, which is always super important. And then connectivity networks. Just talking a little bit about how information is shared. I think the main one is with the internet, with Wi-Fi, and then commonly now in a remote setting, cellular data. But any way to use and access the internet is always an important component of these remote systems, as it can let you transport information across the world, like rapidly, very quickly, and get you access to communicating with experts and people of all different fields that apply to what you need in the moment. And so I think that is obviously a very important thing, and is often underlooked as a component, since it's often just a given in today's day and age to have that type of internet connection. And so it's definitely something super important to keep an eye on, though, and understand it isn't a given. It's something that's very important and needs to have attention given to it. And then we're going to look at patient portal or mobile apps. I feel like that's something that people often complain about, especially over the past couple of years. Is the designs are often not intuitive in patient portals or mobile apps for a lot of these medical companies. And so I think that's actually a component that I think there's a lot of room for improvement, of making these apps more intuitive, making them easier to work with, and just overall making the experience easy. I think is something that is entirely within reach, since it's not really a technological problem at all. It's customer service. It's about human interactions, and having good graphic designers and API people that can better take the information and stuff that is necessary, but then also making it easy to use, to read, to understand, of here's what you need to do. I feel like a lot of the problems come with form submissions and stuff. And so I think that is definitely a huge component that oftentimes is a barrier to a lot of people. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement there. And then clinical dashboard, like a unified view of patient trends, generated alerts, care plan adjustment tools, just things that are more doctor or treater facing things when it comes to like that's I'm talking about the clinical dashboard. That's a big component, though it's not seen often by most people, since most people are not doctors. Definitely still an important thing to think about. Data analytics and AI as well. I think that's something that has been a great use of AI over the past couple of years for detection and monitoring and automated systems, and data analytics in general, which have been used for decades, over 100 years in a lot of different fields, but definitely peaked up in a lot in the past couple of decades, of taking the information we have and being able to do statistical analyses of them to gain more insight based on the information we have from other sources and stuff, and making those types of comparisons. And then finally, EHR integration and just bidirectional exchange of RPM data with electronic health records for a lot of, wide-reaching care coordination, of just having that two-way street. Again, I feel like that's a lot of what I'm talking about, is making the care and communication just one and the same, of having the patient in the loop and the doctor being able to communicate those things to keep that care going. And then moving on, connectivity technologies and RPM. And we briefly went over it. So there's the ways to access the internet, Wi-Fi and cellular networks, and narrowband Internet of Things. But I think the one that I kind of glossed over a little bit is Bluetooth technologies, which are really ideal for short distance things and being able to make it just easy to move around in a small space. A big example of that is smart watches, which are able to get basic vitals, heart rate, blood oxygen, and then movement data, but are able to do it in a way where there's no wire attached, there's nothing in the way. You just need to have a separate device within reach, or within 100 feet to be able to move or transfer the Bluetooth data, or honestly just have the data on the smartwatch, and then at some point while it's still active, being able to pass by a Bluetooth location to be able to transfer that data in a safe and secure way. And I think that that's a really important technology, as a lot of different medtech things rely on being able to transfer all this information and these energies and different resources. And so being able to reduce some of the wires, some of the tubes and things that get in the way of movement or make things more difficult to work around, just getting rid of some of those help. And so I think Bluetooth technologies are always super important. Cloud-based platforms and clinical dashboards. I feel like over the past couple decades, with the rise of the Internet of Things, cybersecurity has always been a super important topic, but I think even more so now, as we are as a society moving more towards cloud-based storage systems and centralizing the resource of data storage. And so being able to continue with those advancements of making decentralization easier and being able to transfer the data, with the previous talked about things of different ways to access the internet. But then also, focusing on the cybersecurity, because it is important to keep data about ourselves and our bodies within our control. And so being able to continue on those trends of improving those and staying on top of any issues that arise are super important. And then, as mentioned earlier, the intuitive dashboards, being able to, in general, before I was talking more about how people are able to access and provide information when it comes to forms or see basic appointment things. But I think also a thing that can happen is being able to share and visualize trends is something that there's always room for improvement for. I know with a lot of smartwatches, they have it is now more than ever before in the hands of the average person to be able to track and monitor their own health. Like with smartwatches, you can see your heart rate over the past year and see where your resting heart rate's been, where your range has been on a day-to-day basis, and you can really see overall. And then you can go on the internet and you can compare it and better understand, where are you now, where have you been, and where do you maybe want to go in the future when it comes to different health markers. And so I think being able to make that information more intuitive to understand, while still keeping a wide range of that type of information accessible to the average person, I think is always super important. And then interoperability standards. Those are going more again into the safety and security of transferring data, but then also the way we capture it. And so I'm just going to keep saying that, it's important to make that data accessible, but also absolutely secure on the internet when it is something that can't be accessed in general by everyone. Definitely keeping information streams safe. And then AI integration and data analytics. The past couple of years, there's been a huge rise in AI. Says it started, in the early in 2020 with ChatGPT, but they predicted it all the way back in like 2017, 2018, where they saw the rise of these big technologies, especially when it came to the transformer-based model system, where that was a huge advancement that just exponentially increased the capabilities of AI by having that new design of breaking down the data processing, the models into almost mini models that then fed the information into different parts of itself, almost like a thought process of just what to focus on, and then being able to continue to monitor and like the very complex systems. Definitely a topic for another day that I'd love to actually go into. But with that though, with the growth of AI and the wider reach and application of it, I think there's a lot of uses and great things that it can be used for, especially with automated anomaly detection. I mean, continuous monitoring is something that's always been a part of both in-house care, hospice care, and hospital care, of being able to keep track of those vitals. And that's often is something where a nurse or a doctor has to take time away from another patient that they may actively be treating to go check on someone who just needs to go through the vitals, make sure everything's been roughly in line. And so being able to make that something where it is automated, where you can know where someone's base values are, you can then set statistical alarm detection of when there's things that are outside of a reasonable amount of those signals, is something that AI would be absolutely specialized for. Especially with the recent paper that came out with Apple, of showing that, yeah, there's a lot of limitations when it comes to AI. They are directly limited to what they're trained on. But I think that honestly is also a strength, because it means that they can be made very, very specialized. And so being able to train them to be almost like an individualized caregiver in checking and keeping up with different markers and health markers is something that's super important. And then predictive analytics. Moving on with the using AI, if you have all that information and you have those active detection, but at some point you can find the patterns of being able to possibly predict when issues are going to rise, and pre-call in different healthcare experts of, like, we foresee this is going to become an issue. And I mean, it's very likely. This is the different likelihoods on these things, and being able to build models and better analyze data to be able to predict those things can help save a lot of lives. And then these are all things that could be applied in a home space, of when you have those smart watches, the smart wearable devices that keep track of your health signals and monitor you for your own use. They can let you know in advance, like, hey, we see a trend where you should maybe get this checked out, go to a healthcare expert and bring up this subject. And so being able to use these things at home is something that is increasingly, in general, when it comes to AI, becoming possible. But I think definitely should be applied in the healthcare space. And that kind of continues on into the personalized treatment plans, where generative systems can use information that you provide of yourself in a secure way to then build off of that and say that with this information, you're part of these groups. Here's what can help you the most. And I think that's definitely something that can be very helpful overall. I'm going to take a pause right now, though, to look at some questions.
Yeah, you got a lot of engagement. That's a great question.
A lot of great questions. Perfect.
Yeah.
Where to start? See, amazing. Thank you. Exciting. Hello. What are all the benefits that this can bring in medical science? I think this was probably back during the remote monitoring section. In general, just the introduction. I mean, being able to remotely monitor means that people can get care wherever they are, and they can get the attention and be helped where they are. And that just that can save lives, as with a lot of people in the medical industry may share. Time is a very valuable resource when it comes to especially emergencies, but honestly health in general. And so being able to reduce the time before you can get care can make a massive difference. And so being able to then get rid of travel times in general and have it be wherever you are, you get that attention, you get those resources, is something that is a huge benefit to medical science in general. Sound very informative. No, was hopefully the sound was fixed.
I think so.
Okay, cool. Can Apple Watch cost be reduced by other cheaper options? Many of us cannot afford to buy expensive technology villages. Yes. I mean, Apple in general is a brand that they have a very wide moat when it comes to business and marketing. They're very secure where they are because they are a brand name. People buy their product because they are what they are. I mean, that sounds like, silly, but it's true. People buy Apple because it's Apple. And so there are absolutely, other technology. Like, they're not the first ones to come up with 99% of their technologies. They're just the first people to package it maybe the way that they do. And so absolutely there are great alternatives. I think when it comes to just basic health signals and thing monitoring with heart rate, but then also great at using for GPS monitoring as well. I would say would be the Garmin watches, series of watches. Those are still pretty expensive, but they're very high quality, less expensive, and more focused. So instead of being like a generic smartwatch of, it's like a phone on your wrist, they're more focused on the active uses of being used to track activities and exercise and keep track of your body and what you're experiencing at that moment is more what they're focused on. So I'd say those are a great alternative. But then also just looking online and using that resource of looking for just watch heart monitors that are maybe Bluetooth connected to your phone or other system, a computer, or not even Bluetooth. Maybe you plug them in once every 24 hours to transfer data. I think there's a lot of alternatives out there. I'm not familiar with all of them, but there are definitely a lot of alternatives out there. The Apple Watches are not the only ones. I mean, there's also the Galaxy series and other smartwatches, but they're definitely also the more limited technologies focused on just your health and blood oxygen, heart monitors, those types of things. Does this help in curing diseases faster? I think all of these technologies do. I can't exactly tell which point, but all of these technologies do, of being able to make it so that more information can be gathered, can be transferred to more experts, and then also more insights can be pulled from AI automated systems, and being able to notice patterns that a lot of humans wouldn't be able to, a lot of doctors wouldn't be able to. And so I think there's all of these resources can help cure diseases faster by noticing more minute changes, by having more information accessible, and then making the information more accessible to more experts. Yeah. How accessible is remote patient monitoring across different regions of the world? I think it depends on the type of monitoring, type of technologies. As mentioned before, a lot of these things are expensive. But I think some of the things that are less expensive are just making general access to the internet, which is something that is becoming only increasingly less expensive over time, and more accessible, more wide-reaching. But yes, there's still a lot of technologies that are gatekept by a big price tag, like the Apple Watches. But I think there are oftentimes more affordable alternatives that can still get you what you want. With just you have to be able to find those, obviously. Yeah. Innovative use of technology in healthcare. Absolutely, it's wonderful to see what a lot of these it's oftentimes startups too. So a lot of individuals or small groups are being able to help a lot of people. How can students involve in technology for health in the USA or India? I think it depends on what year you are. If you're going to higher education, college, just looking out for classes you can take that can obviously keep you on your track, but also help inform you of different new medical technologies or medicine in general. It's always good. If you're in other education levels or below that, I think using the internet is a great way to just you can always look up new articles and keep up with new technologies released, so that you are aware of what's going on, And there's a lot of, on YouTube, there's a lot of great free educational tools, like our own, like our YouTube channel, that are able to provide information on technologies and try and make it more accessible to more people in different mediums. And so I think the most important thing is internet access can really help a lot. But if you want to get involved in the technologies in a more professional level, instead of just being aware of what's going on, I think networking and reaching out to different companies and things of different opportunities that are available is something that also available through the internet. So look out for that.
Vignesh can read some of the questions. There's some new questions.
Yeah. Well, lots of great questions. Well, I guess we start with my question.
Oh yeah, how do we effectively
teach-
teach patients of diverse backgrounds in tech proficiency how to use these devices? I think the best way to do this is to bring more people of more diverse communities and experiences into the medical field. Because if there's someone who's similar to you in the medical field, they will know the best way to communicate these ideas to you. And so I think that's why we should encourage more people, even in our own communities, especially in our own communities, to pursue medicine, of any different degree, or to honestly just try and educate themselves with online resources on what is out there, and even going to libraries of just educating yourself, so that you can so there's a smaller gap between what people may be trying to communicate, but then also so that you can help communicate different ideas with other people in your community. You can be a resource if you keep yourself in the loop. If you educate yourself, you can share everything you do to help other people who are just like you, which is an amazing thing. In general, yeah.
That's a great answer. Yeah. Saurav Azizi asks, how can you secure patient data when it's being transmitted via cloud platforms? Do you have thoughts on this?
Yes, so that goes into cybersecurity, which is a very fun, complex topic. But overall, a little like top view explanation of how that happens is that the data is encrypted, which means that it's put into a formula or a function that kind of garbles it up in a way where any other person who intercepts it will look at it and go, this is just random, combination of symbols. There's no pattern to it. Or no discernible pattern. But then on the receiver end, they have that same function that was used to garble it up, but they have it in reverse, where then they are able to go, okay, so this is nonsense. It's just random data. There's no actual use to it. But if I put it into this undoing formula, this undoing function, it gives me what the original information and data was. And so it makes it so that unless you have the undo function, or the one that is able to unencrypt it or decrypt it, it keeps the data safe. And so those types of things have been the central idea of cybersecurity, and especially on the internet, since the beginning of the internet decades ago. And so that's kind of the general idea. And then obviously recently there's been the worries with quantum computing, which are able to do almost parallel perspectives of the same data, have been able to have a lot more success when it comes to cracking different cybersecurity, like standardized cybersecurity practices. But I still think, though, that with every advancement in one way, there's advancement in the other. And cybersecurity is constantly improving, where technologies 10 years ago, the average person could find ways to break into them. But because there's constantly new updates to what systems are being used, and what functions and ideas are being applied to cybersecurity, you really can't fully keep up, and there's no catch-all way to break in. And so almost all data is pretty secure, due to a lot of these practices and the research and attention put into cybersecurity, since everyone is interested in protecting data.
Cool. Let's hope it keeps being that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, Mahima Roy asks, will doctors be trained for the RPM systems, or will it be people from other fields that will also come together and work on them? Or is it just doctors?
I think it's a little bit of everyone. I mean, so the doctors will obviously be bringing in the health and the medicine focus and attention, but other individuals are necessary to make the platforms, run them. You will need people who, customer service people who are able to say, oh, you have issues with this. Here's how, I'm trained to help you, where they may not have any formal background, but they are given the information and resources to know how to help people with different problems. And then there's also the different engineers and programmers who build these systems and build these technologies. So I think there's a lot of different people that will be involved and that have been involved with building RPMs in general. So yeah.
Nice. Okay, Varun Singh Chauhan asks, can it support clinical trial data management?
Absolutely. I think you were talking about AI, and absolutely. AI is something that can be applied to almost anything with a pattern. I mean, that's really all they are is pattern recognition and following systems, which a lot of people, it was what some people say about our brains in general, which is where the name artificial intelligence comes from. But they can absolutely be applied to clinical trial data management, by being able to just show trends and be able to build predictions when it comes to the data that a lot of clinical trials bring in. And also, what types of clinical data are best suited for cloud storage, and which may still be better kept on premises? I think that all data can be, all clinical data can be used in a cloud storage setting. I think the real only limitations are making sure you have consent of being able to store this in a separate location technically, even though it is secure, and there's not going to be, I mean, there's almost rarely data leaks, and when there are, it's not for this type of information in these types of settings oftentimes. And then I think also keeping data that is kept remotely anonymous is usually a pretty important step to take, of having a code name of or having codes in there where that this data refers to this person, but someone who just gets access to the data would be like, okay, this is data on a person, but I don't know who it is. So I think keeping things anonymous as well, as anonymous as possible. And this comes down back to the same basic premises of the cybersecurity of there's information that what it means, or you're able to find out what it means, but other people are not able to find out what it means. So being able to have the clinical data that is stored be assigned to someone that who that person is, but other people can't. I think is an important approach to take. Then
I've got a more philosophical question, which is, generally speaking, what do you think about the pros and cons of AI and automation in the medical space and medical technologies, where it's like people?
Yes. I think there's been a lot of questions over the past couple months too on the subject of AI's place, since it is being applied to pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are wondering, does it have to? Should it? Just because you can, is that still a step that we should be taking? I think there's a lot of pros I mean, because it is oftentimes more accurate data analytics than someone who does it individually. I think it's also can be used in a way that a human would not normally be able to notice things. There's been image recognition models that have been used for identifying cancers or different anomalies with medical pictures that like most medical professionals may not be able to notice. So I think there's a lot of uses in there where they are specially trained and are pretty amazing in what they can do and their capabilities if specialized. I think the cons, I think mainly are focused on the fact that oftentimes you're taking a human out of the loop. I know with a lot of customer service things, they're being replaced with AI systems. And a big limit with that is that those systems are designed for specific issues and things that they foresee. But there's oftentimes a lot of problems that can't be foreseen, especially when it comes to customer service and things where you're dealing with all types of situations. And so I think taking humans out of the loop or reducing their accessibility to different situations and making it rely more on computer systems, there will always be negatives in those types of situations.
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay. I Like Communications asks, can my data be made public without my knowledge? Can that happen?
In full transparency, yes. I think it's rare. Is rare. But there's always, with any situation, there's always a risk that things will go wrong. There's always a risk that someone will go into a situation and be able to do something they shouldn't do. And so I think, yes. So I know that, yes, your data can be made public without your knowledge. Is it likely? No. But yes, it is definitely still possible that someone can possibly get lucky with a decryption algorithm where they stumble upon the correct way to unencrypt something, or the correct way to break into or get behind a cloud storage system, or even they can break into a hospital or clinic and they can take the data directly. And there's oftentimes there's a lot of ways to do it. But then again, unlikely. So yes, it can happen, but it is unlikely, and hopefully it doesn't happen. Hopefully it doesn't, but it is possible.
And then Surab asks, how is RPM used in space?
First of all, a lot of people do not even know RPM. So can you explain to the common public what is RPM? And so the wonderful thing about this talk is people from all different backgrounds, IT professionals, cyber security, business professionals, doctors, engineers are all coming together, and we're all talking about health. So to make it easy for a lot of students, particularly I Like Global NGO students have joined from Kolkata. Vishal Kumar doctor has joined from Bangalore. So just make it more easy for common people to integrate. The purpose is knowledge sharing and also empowering. So yeah, we would love to listen from you.
Yeah. So RPM is what we've been talking about. It is the remote patient monitoring. It is an umbrella term for any way to keep track of a patient or data on them or their current state from a not in-person situation. And so how it is being used in space, that's actually something we covered in a previous talk, but just an overview of it. A lot of what happens in space is quite literally out of our reach. And so being able to do a lot of the medicine, treating, and or the monitoring and just keeping track of different vitals is something that's super important when you're in a very unique environment like space. But you can't always have everyone up there. And so in a space setting, it is oftentimes, data is transferred to people on Earth, to experts on Earth who may not be able to get up to space or who just didn't have the opportunity, where people can get they can be monitored being while being still up in space. And so, I mean, it's being used in most situations in space, most medical situations where you need extra insight, because I mean, space is a very volatile place, and so any difference is something that will need to be, or any unique situation or any medical change will be something that will need a lot of people to talk about, to communicate, to better understand, to just check in general. Yeah. Looks like we're caught up on questions.
Yeah. Take it away for the second half then.
Second half then? Yeah, absolutely. I'll speed up going through a little bit of these next parts so we can continue onward. But yeah, we will go into advancements in wearable sensor technologies. So let's start off with multi-parameter wearables. So a lot of those different things that we're talking about, where it's heart rate, ECG, blood oxygen, temperature, a lot of those things, being able to combine those into like combined systems and ecosystems is something that there's been a lot of advancements in, by making technologies smaller, making them being able to interact with each other. And this is oftentimes seen with like smartwatches, which is pretty cool. And then continuous glucose monitors. I mean, the past decade, there's been massive improvements from a lot of different companies, as you can see on there, with active, data gathering when it comes to glucose blood sugar monitoring. I mean, there's the this is past dozen years or so, is implantable technologies of something that's put on your in your arm, where it's able to send the information of your blood sugar directly to your phone and keep that active monitoring. So that's been a huge advancement. Going into implantables, they've also been able to have things, systems that are usually left unmonitored of pacemakers and those types of things are being added, where they are Bluetooth capable of being able to send more information on what the situation is with them, what their state is, how they're working, a lot of things. And so that can mean that you can notice problems when it comes to technology faster, which is always pretty important, but also being able to notice just different like internal situations that are changing easier, with implantables and sensors that can be put in your body, being remotely accessible without having to have wires coming out of you constantly, and other situations like that. Smart scales and thermometers, there's always new advancements when it comes to different types of detecting the same type of information, and so new technologies and being more accurate when it comes to scales, and new ways to detect the different your body composition, your muscle density, your where fat is deposited, where the muscle density or the bone density is also super important. So there's a lot of new ways to always detect and learn more about ourselves in more accurate ways. As mentioned before, we're talking about the continuous glucose monitoring devices. Those are oftentimes the arm wearables. I mean, there's a couple different ones: the Dexcom, Abbott, Eversense, but they're all similar, different styles of things, where it's something that is implanted, attached to you constantly, but being able to transfer that data to a smartphone, where you are able to look at charts of your own information and have it in your own hands to understand how you are medically, how you are with how your blood is doing, and so that's something that there's been a lot of recent updates, and they're constantly updating and releasing new versions of those with the physical sensors themselves, but also the software of making it more, making it easier to understand the data that you get. Implantable remote monitoring devices, as mentioned earlier. The cardio MEMS HF sensor is a wireless pulmonary artery pressure monitoring, and it's able to reduce heart failure hospitalizations by 30% by having greater insights, because it is able to pull more information directly from your heart. It is able to send your heart and directly be able to tell your heart's current strength, where it's been, and that can hopefully help us understand where it's going. So that's a great technology. There's also the other alternatives of the Fire One implant, but then also there's generalizing a little bit, neurostimulators and biosensing chips, where there's a lot of different implantables that can track very individualized things such as cortisol, and then also different chemicals in the brain and neurotransmitters states, and then also just fluid status for a lot of different things that can be used as markers or warning signs for different situations. And then for going into popular 2025 remote patient monitoring devices and applications, we talked about Bluetooth. One of those applications is hypertension management, being able to have ecosystem implantable on you, but being able to have that data of, oh, something's coming up, there's new, your blood pressure's changing. Here's get that warning so you can better act on it. And so there's that application, cellular weight scales, which is CHF fluid monitoring. And that's those are things that are sold by Fitbit is a common example of that, of being able to have those wearables that are external, but being able to get more information about what's going on inside. Multi-sensor wearables like the Garmin I was talking about, which I definitely push for looking into. They're very, very useful and very durable as well for a lot of different usages. CGMs, diabetes care, which is something that affects a lot of people around the world. And so being able to continually advance and have just continually get better information and better understand your current blood glucose levels is always something that's super important. We talked about implantables, smart thermometers. A big part of the body's ecosystem is the temperature. That's the latent energy of your body, and it can tell a lot. And so being able to continually have better ways to read the temperature of various parts of your body, and then also being able to tie that to get that data and tie it to more situations to better understand ourselves is always something super important. Benefits and impact on healthcare. These RPMs, remote patient monitoring, reduce hospital readmissions by up to 50% by being able to keep track of patients' health after they leave the hospital, where you can be sent home earlier while a doctor is still in the loop, so that you can more space is opened up, but they can keep track of you and let you know, oh, like maybe you need a little bit more of this medicine, so maybe have this adjustment, where they don't necessarily need to be there with you, but are able to still have that continuous monitoring at such a high level, which is also something that's pretty amazing. And then also, it can help make emergency visits in general go more successfully, as you can get warnings ahead of time from with heart sensors and things that go, oh, your heart rate is irregular. You should probably seek help. There's a lot of things where it improves the patient outcomes in general. And then also enhanced accessibility and equity. Going back to, we mentioned this at the start, where making these technologies available to all types of people and being able to have experts reach you where you are makes it so that travel doesn't become an issue as much anymore. And where you normally would not be able to reach the care you need, reach the expert, the insight you need, you now can by being able to have remote calls and communication and have data sent remotely. And that can also mean that even if you're under the care of a doctor, they can get help and insights from other doctors quicker, which is also pretty amazing. Operational efficiency, continuing with the topic of being able to get insights quicker from other doctors. You're able to have more information gathered that can be used to better understand your current situation, but also your situation before. The data you get from like smartwatches and stuff is stored on your phone. And so a doctor can ask you like, hey, could you share this stuff so we can know maybe what led to your current situation, or what changes were made maybe to know what the problem is, like where were these, when did these changes happen, and just being able to better understand your current situation. These automated alerts and the data aggregation help boost decision making and productivity a lot, up to 30% in a lot of situations. And then also cost savings, I think, is the most important thing of being able to make it so you only that hospital cares are expensive, hospital visits, emergency visits, and so being able to know when you need to go can help save money of not having to waste resources of going and then find out maybe you just needed this or the small change. And you should absolutely use emergency resources when something comes up, but it can also help that you can know ahead of time, maybe like if there's more of a rush, more of a need to go there, or maybe sometimes you can get the information you need to just be like, oh, actually you just need to go to the store to get this small medication or something, and that can save a lot of money and a lot of resources. And then integration with telehealth platforms. I think that we've talked about a lot of these different things where using the internet as best as it can to make doctors be able to communicate with patients where they are, and being able to send information easier. So we've talked about a lot of this already. And then the reimbursement and policy landscapes. That is something that has definitely come into attention a lot the past year, for a lot of different reasons, especially when it comes to Medicaid, which a large percent of the United States and a lot of other countries that have those types of different things. And
so just to make it clear to our viewers, that many countries have payment systems like India, where it's out of the pocket, so people save for the bad times. So sometime when there's a big disease in the family, people will also be selling their properties, they have to sell their gold, or they have to use their money which they have been saving for the health. Compared to this topic which you're talking about is reimbursement policy landscape in America, where it's all about insurance based. Both the systems are not perfect. Health sciences and the burden of health on the people is always big and huge, particularly when chronic conditions like cancer, trauma, disability hit the families. So if you have insurance policies, it's well and good, but sometimes policies don't cover a lot of chronic diseases. Or if you go late to them, they do not cover. If you had a cancer diagnosis and then you go to them, it's a very big problem because it's a huge amount. So it's great that you brought up this topic, and I'm sure in the future we'll have a full discussion on this particular topic.
Yeah, you could absolutely give a presentation on this topic to help people.
These topics are brought by the interest of our students, and some of the topics may not be valid for you today if you are in India, but if you're traveling to America, you would want to understand the insurance system, the policy around there. As we know, a lot of students are traveling from one country to another. Germany is very different. Vignesh was in Germany. Did you have any kind of understanding about the health systems or insurance covered in Germany? What kind of insurance you had when you went to Germany?
I had to buy insurance for 2 months in order to get the visa. But when you have that insurance, you can get free treatment. But if you don't have it, then they charge you a lot. But yeah, I didn't know anything else, just that I needed this insurance.
Right.
And I think that's very general. People travel, but they don't know the policies of the country they go to. So if you get sick in the US while you're traveling here, good luck if you don't have insurance, right?
Yes.
So it's like, it's very important to know about this stuff.
I think it really does come back to the whole idea of cost saving, of knowing when you need what type of care, and being able to get that information as soon as possible. So like, oh, I need to start looking into my savings. I need to start looking at ways if I can get some reimbursement, if I can get some things paid for, or honestly just knowing like, hey, I don't actually need to spend all this money on this detection if you already know what the issue is, and so there's a lot of different ways that you can hopefully do some cost saving, so you can better save your resources and better have money for when there are those big emergencies where you do need to just spend a lot of money on doing that. So one last slide, just future outlook. These were all things that I put in there, but I do want to kind of highlight them in general of the AI-driven personalization, starting out with that, where you can build models and where you that restructure data and share patterns with individuals. And I think that's a great thing to look forward to, but also with being able to help doctors personalize care of being able to notice more things and better understand the patterns and what is normal for each patient. I think AI can help a lot with that. Advanced connectivity, being able to increase internet access is definitely something that can help when it comes to remote medicine, telemedicine, remote patient monitoring, being able to transfer data quicker and have more people have access to more types of data when it comes to their own health, and being able to learn more about their current situation. And then extended applications, being able to build more ecosystems and systems when it comes to maternal health, pediatric monitoring, mental health, which is always a huge topic, and then also the hybrid systems of being able to have that sort of hospice care situation where you are being getting health and monitoring health medicine at your house, and also sometimes need to go in and being able to better transfer that data and build that gap and that bridge where experts are constantly more aware of your current situation, and being able to keep up with understanding what treatment you need at the moment. And then at the end of it all, stricter data management and security, continuing to improve cybersecurity, where people are able to feel more comfortable having their data in a cloud setting and have their data safer, which is always super important. And yeah, we'll go through some questions before finishing up.
So all those viewers who joined us today, a big thanks to you. While we are going through the last part of the questions, please put your comments who are there. How did you find this session? Any particular topic you would want to listen, or if you want to associate with us in any way, you want to give a talk here, you want to be part of our club of students who come together and decide on topics, or if you want to share this with your college groups, you're more than happy to contact us directly. You may reach out to Avery or Vignesh and take the links which you can share with your college groups in your countries. We'll be more than happy to share these videos anyway on YouTube. The advantage is that they're always there, so you can always go back and reflect. There's a lot of things which I learn from YouTube channels when I go and revisit them. So yeah, last few minutes and then we'll have quick roundup. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for talking about that. Yeah, I appreciate a lot of the support in the comments. Thank you. And then we do have a question. Can you bring a topic on career in medtech space for nurses, doctors, and public health professionals? Yeah, I definitely think we have people here who are experts in those types of fields, and so they can absolutely build their own presentations and continue to share more leading edge, more higher level information in future talks. Wonderful topic, and yeah, thank you everyone for your support, and thank you for joining us here today. And I hope you all learned some things from both of us. Yeah,
Great talk.
great talk, and thanks so much. We'll have Dominic come over one more time.
She's going to tell about her next talk.
Firstly, I'd like to thank the both of them for presenting on these topics today. They did such a wonderful job. On Thursday, I will be presenting a topic and a presentation on just learning more and understanding women's health. So look forward to that, and hopefully you guys come. It'll be at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time and 9:30 IST time. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Would you like to come over and say bye as well? Yeah, take care.
Take care, everyone.